Hello, welcome once again. Today, I want to continue on some things that we have touched in previous videos. Maybe more specifically, been thinking a lot about this flow or this flow, the flow through the torus, especially in the model of having two torus or tori, I guess. This element of, I touched on this earlier in another video, going through that 0 point, facing ourselves, experiencing life from the other side, as in, like, if this is inside out, then experiencing that as outside in, connecting this a whole lot with karma, or maybe also want to move away from that label a bit, maybe because there is some energy attached to that. And I also see these things much more as balance and universal principle of order. But again, we can also call karma that, I guess. Surely has to do with principle of actions having consequences. So I wanted to dive deeper into this, looking also at how does it actually show up, because I recognized how I feel this shows up for all of us. Like I said, none of us can escape this. None of us can escape these universal principles. And also, like, I heard the voice, or some people say they believe in karma. What does that mean? I don't see myself believing in it, but from my own experience, I see there is this pattern of consciousness itself. There is this sometimes maybe it feels like a force as well, or like something at play here, a karmic force. But the thing is, we have to be able to recognize this when it shows up. Because I feel it shows up for all of us, but you can also ignore it or not see it as that. And then also want to dive into, like, why is this actually here? That question. What's the purpose of this? Tying that in with how a lot of people can feel trapped in karmic loops, or the thing of, like, trying to run away from this force or trying to escape their karma. Doesn't have to be that way, but we are free to choose our own path. That's the thing. And so from there, I guess, from choosing our path, we become more free in choosing our path when we actually become aware of the path itself and the patterns that appear. I certainly notice myself pattern recognition, something I've been training myself on from the day I was born, I guess. But this really helps in decoding life, or seeing how life actually flows, and through that definitely has helped me a whole lot in my own growth. But so I want to get to an example I was thinking of like I said, we experience something on this side of the flow, also from this perspective, and then somehow we go home, the thing flips on itself. I also recognize within my own life, we don't necessarily always consciously experience this. This could also just be maybe going to sleep or something, I don't know. You don't necessarily have to be conscious. We're not always necessarily conscious of where we are on the flow. And that doesn't necessarily matter too much always, even though if we do become conscious, it can probably reveal some new things to us. But either way, I was thinking of an example of me. This has happened so often to me in my life, I guess. I see it happening. I speak about something, I say something, could be also just to myself, thinking about things, exploring something. And let's point out here, I'm exploring or speaking from a certain perspective. Want to call it in this context maybe like the half truth or something. And then I move to life. Could be some time later, could be really long time, could be the very next hour, or could be the next day. All variable. Maybe it depends on how fast we flow, but I often then find people come in my life and like this could be also friends that are or people that I already knew, or doesn't have to be a new person, but when we truly listen to what they're saying, recognizing how this connects with what has been going on here. Could be my thoughts, could be, hey, I was just talking about this. But it also often has some kind of element of giving you the other side. Let's look at this. This has a lot of different forms or depth levels. There is already another side when instead of us speaking these words, now we perceive it from, now someone else is saying this. Often to me, that actually um, reveals something new to me. And within that, it's like I see myself in you. I see God in this moment as well, because I see some kind of pattern and like this is not a coincidence. And usually it's a joke, but it also depends, because this can also very well come in such a way where it's more of an energy of this is biting me in my ass. It all depends on what energy we were actually in on this side, and then it is reversed on that side. Like I said, it can take in or take on many different forms, but there is a dynamic where you are meeting that other half of yourself. When we are very egoic, the thing is, I also notice just me speaking or in these videos, or even with these videos, it's also interesting how I watch this video usually the next day, and then hearing myself, it's like I also reveal some or discover some new sides to what I'm actually saying. That is very interesting. I like that. We could also experience that as if it was something wrong, or seeing yourself as a fool. That also plays a lot with this. I want to get back to that in different wording maybe, but The thing is, we have to recognize ourselves and that we are maybe um, recognizes this other half of ourselves. This is also already getting to why is karma even here. It's really a teacher who actually helps us to unify by showing us the other side of ourselves, our shadow side. It's showing us, often also making us feel this other side to the story. And through that, if we truly experience it consciously as well, but both sides really, then we can come to union. It can help us. You're literally meeting yourself on the journey through another person. You have to be able to recognize that as your own piece as well, and then we can integrate this. This can be a fun piece, or it can be really shit. But either way, the underlying question is also, do we truly want to break free from these karmic loops? Do we want to grow? Do we want this unity? Do we want to unify? Do we want to love ourselves? Do we want to meet ourselves and all parts of ourselves? When it's our shadow that we're meeting, often also actually also in my own experience, I have a lot of these things just happening within my own mind where I'm like reflecting here and then suddenly something is being revealed here, but I'm seeing the other side of my reflections themselves. Usually also coming with a real feeling of like, oh fuck, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's I, also connecting that a bit with truth being revealed and how it often initially stings a bit, but from that feeling as well, and like recognizing and having to take a breath to like let that sink in. It's also often a nice indicator how we can actually um, learn to recognize truth. It's different from I want to believe this. These things that I suddenly see, it's not necessarily that I want to see this, but things I have opened myself to wanting to see the truth. That connects to me with, I was thinking about, well, how we can walk the journey. Let me first point out, the thing is, we can be conscious, present on our journey. Then we are consciously also in the moment itself. We can, when we are speaking, we can be conscious and present with ourselves in such a way that we're actually truly listening to what we are saying ourselves. In that way already is often for me just hearing myself speak in the moment itself or to some other person. It can already reveal things to me. And I want to point that out because a lot of people are not hearing what they are saying themselves. And if they would start to listen to what they're actually truly saying themselves, it is often exactly the key to how to break free. But that's facing that one can be really funny. It's in a way that connects to me with how they're often externalizing something when they actually have to hear it themselves and internalize that. But either way, so I was saying we can be conscious on the journey, listening, be conscious of and remembering in some way what we have been thinking about. I'm differentiating that between how often people are really absent in their own life, not present, living unconsciously, the energy of not knowing what you did 1 hour ago, not knowing what you did yesterday, then it's becoming difficult to even recognize when these two things connect. You don't recognize it because you have forgotten that you were actually thinking about this earlier. So it requires a presence in both moments. I then also therein feel how when that union doesn't happen, when we are not meeting ourselves, then it just keeps going, it just keeps looping. And again, if you stay absent in that, if you stay in a mindset of I don't want to see, I don't want to face my consequences, I don't want to meet my other half, it's also like this karmic energy, it can take on two main or ways, or spiraling up towards more union, or it can help us also, if that's what you for some reason want, help you spiral down into further fragmentation, because you're facing the consequences of your actions. I had this thing come to me, some kind of a memory, even though it's a bit vague, from when I was younger, very young, I guess. And there I, I don't really remember the detail, but it points out this thing of like when we have been lying, and in some way we know, because we don't always know we're lying, but if we know we're lying, and then this comes back, and it's like, oh, the lies are being discovered. And having going through that experience, I really didn't like that. I was actually asking like, oh, I want to break free from this, I don't want to have this experience again. Now I recognize in my life, well, I don't have such experiences if I just remain truthful all the time. And that doesn't mean everything I say is necessarily the whole truth. Like I said, there is the process of discovering that other half, but walking on innocence is the key. I'll return to that in a minute, but just want to touch on this lying. When we are faced with, oh, the lies are being exposed, what do? So there we can choose, when we're to generalize this, when you're facing your karmic, or your karmic loop is coming to the center again, you're facing justice, then it's also the question, what am I going to do? Are we going to break free through integrating it? Okay, I see I've done this, and this created that. This creation, I feel karma, this universal principle, consequences of our actions, it's a flow of consciousness, and it's very tied in with learning how to actually create, and how creation actually works in a balanced way, and what is the true order. But to get back to the example, when the lies are all there, what are you gonna do? Own up to the truth? That is often well, looking at yourself in the mirror and seeing, okay, I've been acting a fool, but I accept that, and then I can let that die. I don't want to do this anymore. I'll do better now, or I'll try something different. Maybe tell the truth, because I've seen what the consequences of this were. I've seen how I created this myself. That's the recognition. We can also stay in a mindset of, no, I didn't do this. We can lie more, fragment more. But then you're creating such energy again, and guess what's gonna happen? It's gonna bite you in your ass in a much clearer way. And then what? You're gonna build even more lies? It's interesting because that way I'm connecting this also with the flow of life, and how are we in this flow, and seeing how a lot of people seem to have build their own prison like this. Always making it more and more difficult to step out of it. To own up to it's, I would say it's different if you have gone through one cycle or then another one, and always making it the mountain, the pile of shit can grow. Then it becomes more difficult, becomes more shit to clean up. But that's beautiful in a way. Well, I've been thinking on my walk a lot also about parasitic and vampiric types of consciousness, how they are in a way the reversal or inversion of this flow of life. When I talk about flow of life, I mean a flow of life that is giving life, generating life. And then I am recognizing also there are these consciousness states where we're actually much more in a state of draining life. And there I ask the question of why. Often also life is, without life there is no life, or you need some kind of life force flowing through you in order to live. And I would say, well, being truly alive is that we become independent and do this by ourselves, that we don't need some kind of other source. Well, within ourselves we can connect with the monad, or like God source, but it's different than how some states of consciousness here have built this prison they are in. That's what I was recognizing during the walk. These parasites, these vampires, they need some other life force for them to function. And that is actually, they are in a prison. And I was connecting this with how, well, things, we can go deeper in this maybe in another video. Want to return to innocence. Innocence is because this is also a key of how to actually open us up to life, how to come actually alive. This connects with a couple of days ago when the Jehovah Witness came and we had a little talk. He also mentioned this thing about the Bible and in the Garden of Eden, the snake, they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God told them to not do that. And this then they would die, something like that. But I'm connecting this, putting this in perspective of this so-called tree of knowledge, this knowledge of good and evil. It takes us out of the innocence state of being. And often that creates that we actually don't flow properly, thus call it death. It disrupts the flow because you're not facing justice. But let's look at innocence. In no sense. It is a state of being where we are like a child. I have no idea. I don't know what's good. This is also what I was trying to talk about with this Jehovah's Witness. How do we actually know what is good and evil? And he was saying, he was quite literally pointing at the tree of knowledge, his Bible. This says what is good and evil. And then I still said, but how do you know that is good and evil? I was pointing at this flow of life. If we flow, I was saying, we can let life itself teach us. But what does that mean? I see this flow to life, and when we are actually innocent, meaning, I don't know, you walk through life with the intention or the knowing that you don't know, but you're willing to discover it by facing justice yourself, by facing the consequences of your actions. To clarify this, I want to take the other side of this example. Someone who is, I guess, not innocent. He has a sense of what is good and evil. He justifies his actions through being good. I guess often some people maybe want to be evil, but either way, this disrupts the flow, because then facing the other side, you may not want to see that. The thing is, I was also connecting this with the energy of Anubis in Egyptian mythology when we die, but I'm connecting that with the 0 point when we return home. Anubis is the one who weighs your heart against a feather and sees how you have been living life. And when we truly live in innocence, we can surrender to this. You be the judge. And please show me so that I can grow my sense of what is truly good and evil. Just letting a tree teach it through eating it, through the knowledge. We have to discover this within ourselves through living life, through meeting and facing Anubis. And then in this mythology, I guess it's also, if your heart is heavy, you go on this path. If your heart is light, some other door opens, some new kingdom opens. That's the thing. When we have reached that state of union, maybe want to connect this even like when we have let life teach us properly and integrate ourselves through living consciously and present on all sides, meaning also the people that show up in our life, the animals, life itself, what happens in our life. It's often the other side of the pieces that we are missing. And unifying all of that, then our heart becomes light like a feather. And not sure if it's like a golden kingdom in that story, but either way, it certainly feels like then that new land opens up. And this then open, but the thing is, the new land is here. But then we can start to see it, and then we can move in unity within that and become more of that conscious creator through having learned how we actually do that, through moving through this flow, through constantly meeting ourselves on the journey. And like I want to mention this again, a lot of the parts we meet, some part of us doesn't want to meet that, so it's not always easy facing those shadows. But that's the thing. And I guess we have the freedom to do this or not. We have the freedom to stay stuck in this loop or not. And it's a layered thing of many unions. But this then helps us or can help us. We can use it in such a way by also questioning our own values, I guess. When we consciously start to choose, I want love, I want to grow in unity, I want to grow in unity with God, then we can step up and actually say, I don't want to run away from Judgment Day again. We can call judgment upon our own lives by surrendering and like, God, please, you show me what is right and wrong. I want to walk the right way, but we are innocent. That's different from you justifying your own actions. I was also thinking of this, of how people can often justify their own actions in the heat of the moment. Maybe someone triggered them and then they get very angry or do something. They feel justified, or they may from there someone told them something they don't like. So they may call on justice, like this person deserves justice, but justice is served here, and then it is seen who is truly, where the scales are truly. It's a learning process to find that balance, and this helps us to walk then in a balanced way through life, which actually more frees us from this karma actually. But within that freedom, it can that's the thing what I also discover within my life. Some people would say good karma or bad karma, I guess, and if we truly integrate this, then we can let karma work for us, or truly just with it. And that is also coming from the union with the universe itself. Then we are working with the universe itself through these principles. We are not, through that understanding of how this actually works, you can just let the universe do its thing. It's interesting because I also connect this with how, and seeing this in my own life before, I had this feeling also of wanting justice in this world. But now, through actually having walked through this and faced justice within my own life, I guess that actually creates. What I'm now recognizing is there is always justice in this world. But now it's coming to light or something. But also, we become more of that justice in the world by acting in that energy, which is truly balanced. And again, want to differentiate, maybe even name something like a justice warrior. Often people think they're bringing justice, but we have to go through the process and question ourselves, are we actually justified to do this? Who is just, is it your ego who is justifying this? Maybe also a saying of judge not. Well, I would say judge all you want. But the thing is, the judging has another side to it. We will face the consequences of our judgment, meaning, especially if we misjudge a situation or some people, this is going to come back to us. But this is also actually truly pointing at order and finding the proper order. So this is the way to finding what's actually a proper order, one that works. What does that mean, work? Then I refer to like a stable balance, which the universe itself has. If we start to understand this, live with this, we can build our justice system within our society that in accordance to this. But okay, I'm going to leave it here for today. Have a good one.